Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
In my law practice these days, I handle almost exclusively lemon law claims. But in the old days, I used to do a lot of other cases involving other people who had suffered at the hands of someone who took their money and didn't do what they're supposed to do. And so I sued a lot of home builders and other people involved in that kind of stuff. And I had a couple cases involving pool builders or pool installers who took people's money and didn't build a pool or finish a pool in their backyard like they're supposed to. And I had a couple very, very interesting cases against some pool builders. And so when I saw this headline, James sent this to me, thank you very much, from KSNW out of Kansas. A pool builder could face felony charges. Dozens of additional alleged victims speak out. Dozens of people have come forward claiming they are victims of being scammed by a pool builder. And the news station names the man and also the various companies that he's worked with. Since KSN's conversation with the man on Monday, KSN has taken dozens of phone calls from people with nearly identical stories that they paid the man over $50,000 each, and he took their money and ran. That's what they call it, money and run. An officer with the Andover Police Department said the justice those alleged victims are looking for is something they are working on. Andover PD opened an investigation into the man on Thursday, and the impacted family's story is a familiar one. She's out $120,000. He came in, did some work. Unfortunately, it was not finished, and she can't get him to answer her back, says the PD officer over there. He said his department is pursuing felony charges. To see someone lose that much money just to have a leisurely time with their family, that's wrong. $120,000. When KSN talked to the man on Monday, he said he continued to take contracts for new pool builds and pay for materials on unfinished projects after his agreement with a franchise ended. He said, when I signed the mutual termination agreement with this company in December, should I have just closed the business down at that point in time? We would have been in the same position 6-8 months ago, he said. So another person complained, saying he signed a contract with a man at the end of May, and the man used a new company name. He said he and his wife now have a second mortgage payment, will never be able to afford the pool. Every month, I go to write a check to the lending institution and know that I've got absolutely nothing to show for it, but this guy is stealing my money. That's what the homeowner there said. He wants the man stopped. He's still out there taking advantage of people. I hope others, through our story, I hope that stops, the man said. Each day, more people are coming forward claiming they're victims too. Another person says, it makes me very angry. It's inconvenient. It's expensive. It's wrong. It's very frustrating. He's been able to do this for so long. As we are finding out, we just hope we're doing our part to get some answers and justice for people. And they're quoting all these different people about what this happened to. And basically the story is this. Somebody wants to have a pool. They want to have a pool in their backyard. So they look up pool installers near them. They find this guy's name or this guy's company. He comes out and looks at it, goes, what kind of pool you want? Boom, 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 writes up a contract and asks him, goes, there you go. It's going to cost you $120. Okay. So they raise the money by putting a second mortgage on their house. They hand him a check, and either he does nothing or he starts the job and just never comes back. And the story that I handled personally was one where somebody, I remember these details vividly because I saw the photographs, was where my client, and this is obviously a different guy than this guy, but same thing, where my client calls up a guy who comes over, looks at their backyard, takes some measurements, goes, yeah, I can install a pool back here, and here's how it's going to look, and blah, 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 blah. Signs a contract. They pay him some money. He actually came out and he dug a big hole in their backyard and never came back. So my clients are like, well, we kind of wish he'd never started because now we got a gigantic hole in our backyard. And one of the things that you'll discover, and this is true in almost all of the trades that involve home improvement or building installations or concrete pours, any time that you have a big contract like that and somebody starts the job and then walks away from it and disappears, getting the job finished is usually very, very difficult because a lot of people don't want to come in and go, oh, someone else started the job? Sure, I'm happy to finish it. They don't want to. Because if they get involved and somehow it doesn't turn out well, they get in trouble. And so obviously, if it's literally just a hole in the ground, somebody else can come by and look at the hole in the ground and go, gee, I can finish that pool. But there's a tendency to not want to get involved because you don't know what someone else has done if they screwed the job up. And so I have represented people who hired a pool builder who came out and dug the hole and disappeared. I have represented somebody who hired a window installer who in November in Michigan ripped all the windows out of the house and disappeared. So my client gave them the money to get started. The guy tears all the windows out of the house and never comes back. And my client's calling the guy going, I got holes in the side of my house where my windows used to be. And so my client had to run around and put stuff over the windows temporarily and start making phone calls to get someone else to come out and fix the job. And the first few people who came out and looked at it go, what a mess. We don't want to get involved in this. And so my client wound up paying more to the person who fixed it than he was supposed to pay to the person who was supposed to be doing it. And I can tell you right now that in every case I've handled like this, I've gotten a judgment against the people I sued. The question is, are they ever collectible? And some cases they were, some cases they were not. And so that's one of the things I have to tell people, because one of the most common questions I get via email or phone calls I get via people just calling my office is that they've hired someone to do some work for them, quite often on the house, the garage, the property, whatever it might be, and the person came out, took some money, never came back. And oftentimes they got started to where it looks like they started the job, but you'll have to realize that a lot of home improvement jobs, if you were to graph how the house looks, it looks okay when it starts, and as they're going, it looks really, really bad, and then it looks better, because they're usually tearing something apart to get started, okay? And if the person takes your money and just starts the job and leaves, you're worse off than you were before they started. That's the irony of it. And so I always tell people, I've had a lot of people say, what do I do? How do I protect myself? The way you protect yourself is when you get the name of somebody who says, I do this kind of work. Say, can you get me some references? And upstanding, reputable places will give you references and say, yes, go look at this house. We did this house. Go look at this pool. Go, here's the phone number of somebody. Call them and ask them. Yeah, they'll do that. And so a very close relative of mine recently had 2 major projects done at his house. And in both instances, he saw someone having work done in their house nearby where he lived. He stopped and talked to the homeowner and said, are these people doing a good job? Yes, they are. Okay. When are they going to be done? Friday. And go by on Friday when they're finishing up the job. You look at it, looks pretty good. Can I have the name, number of the person? Sure. You get the name and number. But you got to go look at work they've done. Because right about now, if you're in Kansas and you're thinking about putting in a pool and you call this guy, he's going to say, sure, I can do a pool for you. $120,000. But you only got to give me half that up front. Give me $60,000 to get started. And guess what? If you call anybody he's worked with recently, they're going to go, don't you watch television? Don't you watch the news? So you should be able to get references. And I know people who've shown me all the paperwork from some guy who came out their house. Guy had a really good game when it came to how he spoke. Guy had all these great materials and stuff. A lot of the materials come from the factory, showing what the pools look like installed. But can you show me some that you've installed? And let me talk to the people you've installed them for. So I can tell you right now, when I've had work done for me at my house, if somebody were to call me and say, hey, Steve, we got asked by somebody whether we can give somebody a reference. Can we give your name and number to this one person, and they might call you and ask you how we did? I'd say sure, because I know that's how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be that the good people can count on the people they've helped to help them. And so somebody who's done a good job for me, I'm happy to talk about it. Say, yeah, these people came out, they did this in my house, and it's great. By the way, you want to come by and look at it? Yeah, sure. Let me know when you want to come by. I'll show it to you. I got no problem doing that, because I like to help out the people who do well the same way. If someone called me and said, hey, Steve, I got your name and number from these people, and they say they did something for you, and if they didn't do good, I'd tell them, I said, no, don't hire them. So you can't just trust the fact they got a nice website. And the article originally said, and I think I forgot to cut and paste this part out of it, but it did say that you should contact the Better Business Bureau. The Better Business Bureau is one of those entities that I'm always cautious of mentioning too much, because a lot of people think the Better Business Bureau can solve your problems. So that if somebody rips you off, you call the Better Business Bureau. More often than not, they can't do anything for you. All they can do is take your complaint. However, if they do in fact gather complaints, if somebody were to call the Better Business Bureau in Kansas right now and say, what about this guy? They'd say, oh, we've gotten a bunch of complaints about him. So calling the Better Business Bureau for a reference in advance of having work done is probably a good idea if you have nothing else to go on. However, don't just assume, well, if I get ripped off, the BBB can help me, because there's a good chance they can't. And I've spoken to people who work there. I've actually worked with them on occasion on a couple of different things. And I know that quite often when someone files a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, the BBB sends it to the business. Business goes, no, that's not what happened. They write their response, and the BBB goes, well, we have to close the file because they say yes, you say no. Sorry. So, but here it's pool builders, and it's actually a pool builder, but it's many customers who've come forward, and they say right now the TV station alone has gotten dozens of additional alleged victims speaking out, and at least one police department saying that pool builder could face felony charges. And so you have to understand one other thing, and that is that criminal charges in these settings are very, very rare. So if you were to say, Steve, track down that guy who tore the windows out of your client's house and just never came back, and charge him with a crime. Let's charge him with a crime, and let's do it back then so there's no statute problems or anything like that. Charge him with a crime. He's going to say, I intended to finish the work. Something happened. I got sick. My wife got sick. My bank account got frozen by somebody doing something completely wacky. I placed the order with the window company, and they claim they lost the order. And remember, it's not a crime that the person didn't finish the job timely. It's a crime if they took the money with no intention of finishing the job, and you've got to prove that they had that intention. Or if they did it with a reckless disregard, they didn't, like in other words, they took 10 jobs and promised they'd all be done in a week when they can only do one job a week. Something like that might do it. But you'd have to prove that they knew that they couldn't do the work as promised. And you got to get into the intent there. But with this many people coming forward and saying it all looks like the exact same transaction, that is, the guy goes in, puts on a really good sales job, gets the money, and then skedaddles with the money. That's a better case. It's a better case. But like I said, I run into this all the time. I stopped handling these cases because in the end, we have a piece of paper, a judgment. Doesn't help my client any, doesn't help me any. So I always tell people, you can complain to the licensing boards, like in Lansing, where people like this, if they need to be licensed, they get enough complaints, then maybe they will straighten up or at least get ousted from the business. So that's from KSNW. James sent it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Why isn't phonetic spelled the way it sounds?